While T'Challa of Marvel's main continuity, Earth 616, might be the most iconic version of the hero, he isn't the only one to have held the mantle, and he certainly isn't the only powerful version of the character to exist throughout the massive Marvel multiverse. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 most powerful alternate versions of Black Panther. Let's get into it. Number 10. Casper Cole. Casper Cole is now known as the White Tiger, but initially we knew him as an alternate version of Black Panther in the 616 reality. Casper Cole was created by Christopher Priest and Dan Fraga, and first appeared in the 1998 series of Black Panther in issue 50. Kevin Casper Cole was a police officer who was itching to get a promotion and decided to start wearing a Black Panther suit he'd come across while working the beat in hopes that it would give him the edge that he needed to win said promotion. Instead, it only helped to bring him into the direct line of fire by his crooked lieutenant, Sal, who aimed to have him killed. Fortunately, the suit protected Casper and saved his life. He was fired from the force but would continue to operate as the vigilante Black Panther in NYC, working to take down his crooked lieutenant. Casper would be given a synthetic version of the heart-shaped herb, which grants him his superpowered, Black Panther-like abilities, and he also possesses, of course, all his training and skills learned from his job as an officer. Number 9. Earth 11080 Shuri. This alternate version of Shuri also becomes known as Black Panther. She first appears in Marvel Universe vs. the Punisher issue number 1 and hails from the alternate reality where a viral outbreak turns the world's inhabitants into feral, mindless cannibals. Sort of mindless. Kind of like zombies, but not zombies, because we already have an alternate Earth for that in Marvel, Earth Z, or Earth Z if you will. Although Shuri's fate remains unknown in this reality, what we do know is that while she was around, the feats that she seemingly accomplished trying to protect the uninfected and scientists searching for a cure were pretty impressive. It's unconfirmed that the Punisher kills Shuri, though it is left slightly implied in issue number 4. You get like a flashback and he's like looking at her while she's killing Bartrock, and it's like, he might be coming for her next, I don't know. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more Black Panther lists, I want to make more for you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Ultimate Black Panther. Ultimate Black Panther kind of got a weird story in comparison to the main continuity version, but this was a world where we were trying to push the envelope and try new things. So I guess this is what happened. And they definitely did that with T'Challa. Well, T'Challa is a king who is known for both his strength and his wisdom, often using his words and speeches to help his people, and currently the Avengers diplomatically in the main continuity. In the reality of Earth 1610, T'Challa instead lost the ability to speak when he fought a panther in order to prove himself, and ended up having his vocal cords badly damaged and pretty much ripped out. His father made a deal with Weapon X in the US to fix his son after he was severely injured in that panther fight. They fixed him up and also gave him new abilities, including an improved healing factor and adamantium claws, but he would not regain his ability to speak. He would also receive training from Captain America. However, T'Challa would also kind of become a prisoner in the US when Fury claimed that because they had fixed him, they got to keep him and basically use him as their hero. I don't think that's how that works, but I guess if Nick Fury's saying he can do it, it's gonna happen, so yeah. Do not mess with Ultimate Universe Nick Fury. Number 7. T'Chaka. T'Chaka is the father of T'Challa and was Black Panther before him. While he might not be quite as much of a genius as his son T'Challa or his daughter Shuri, T'Chaka still has a brilliant mind when it comes to tactics, diplomacy, and leadership. Like the Black Panthers who would come after and who came before him, T'Chaka had also ingested the heart-shaped herb, which granted him his superpowered abilities, including super strength and super speed. T'Chaka was also in peak physical condition and was an extremely experienced and skilled martial artist. Number 6. T'Chaka 2. or T'Chaka II. This version of Black Panther comes to us from the Exiles Volume 2 out of 2009. He made his first appearance in issue number 1 of that series. T'Chaka II was named after his grandfather and is the all-powerful son of Storm and Black Panther from the alternate Earth of 1119. We haven't seen too much of him in the comics, but it's safe to assume he has the powers of Black Panther, despite him going by the alias of just Panther. And he's likely an all-around formidable fighter and leader, being the son of two very powerful heroes. He also packs a mean Wakandan nerve pinch. Gotta love that. T'Chaka II was created by Jeff Parker and Salvador Espin. Number 5. Queen Shuri. Shuri would go on to become the Queen and the Black Panther after T'Challa slipped into a coma in the main reality of Earth 616. Shuri has always wanted to become a fierce warrior ever since she was a child, and she is prepared to take on that role. Not only did she prove to be a great warrior, but she was a strong leader who refused to lay down arms in the war against Atlantis, just as her brother had before her. Shuri not only has the power of the heart-shaped herb, but her soul would travel to the Dajalia, and there she would receive extra training, and when she returned to her body, have extra abilities and powers as a result. So not only does Shuri have all the skills she developed herself growing up, but she also now can turn into a bird or birds, possesses a rock form, and can travel to the Dajalia plane and even reanimate the dead. So pretty powerful. Number 4. NGOZI. NGOZI comes to us from the alternate reality where after getting in the midst of a superpowered fight, she ends up becoming imbued with the powers of Venom and of Black Panther. She was originally a Nigerian track star who was left unable to walk after a severe bus accident. When Venom was fleeing from Rhino and then went on to kill Black Panther, the symbiote ended up finding her and bonding to NGOZI. Brave NGOZI was able to convince the symbiote to help her in defeating Rhino, and the Dora Milaje were so impressed by this show of strength and bravery that she was appointed as the new Black Panther. Number 3. MCU T'Challa. T'Challa in the cinematic universe was an extremely skilled warrior, but also should be well known for his perseverance in the face of insurmountable odds and his sense of honor. These are the main things that I think made him so strong and made him stand out as a ruler. But also, that impact suit though. The suit of course was a gift from Shuri in the MCU, so in a way it also just goes to show how strong the whole Black Panther family unit is there. While they don't touch on it as much in the MCU, it's also believed that T'Challa still has the genius level intellect that he is well known for in the comics, and that he is a master strategist and tactician, which would make sense considering he's likely been trained since birth for his role as ruler and as Black Panther. Number 2. Ghost Panther. This alternate version of Black Panther comes to us from the Warp World reality. As with all the creations on Warp World, he is a combination of two souls, two characters, Ghost Rider and Black Panther. Warp World was created when Gamora used the power of the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half, merging together everything within it, so we got these sweet combination characters. I love it. T'Challa here possesses the powers of both of these heroes. He was a Wakandan prince who was exiled for his arrogance, and ended up becoming a motorcycle stuntman, taking up the show name Johnny Blaze. When an accident left him close to death, he was made an offer by Zarathos, great power in exchange for becoming her servant. T'Challa refused, but would later accept Zarathos' offer under different circumstances after learning his father had been murdered. Number 1. Killmonger. While T'Challa is an amazing ruler, has a brilliant mind, and is an impressive, unstoppable fighting force, ERIK Killmonger from the comics has received a lot of power-ups over the last few years that would probably put him above MCU T'Challa, I would say. ERIK has ingested the heart-shaped herb and lived to tell the tale despite not being of the Royal Panther tribe bloodline and basically being put into a coma because of that. He's also gone to outer space, ruled the intergalactic empire of Wakanda as Emperor Killmonger, been resurrected, and been given even more strength, and also has bonded with a symbiote of Clintar. He is the definition of an overpowered villain.
And at number 10, Earth X Black Panther from Earth 9997. This version of T'Challa sees the character as a humanoid panther. Upon eating the heart-shaped herb, he gains not only his powers as Black Panther, but also mutates into a humanoid panther. This mutation only continued to further progress as the Terrigen mists were released into Earth's atmosphere. Thus, the animals in Wakanda would also mutate too, becoming humanoid versions of themselves. Kinda creepy. In recent Earth 9997 history, this version of Black Panther was given the Cosmic Cube by Captain America after the hero killed Red Skull. He trusted that T'Challa would resist the temptation to use it, and hold on to it safely. And at number 9, Cold Tiger from Earth 355. Back when Black Panther Panther was in development in 1966, Jack Kirby's initial design for the character's costume was very different than what it turned out to be when the character first hit comic stands. Kirby and Stan Lee's name for the concept was Coal Tiger. That wasn't the last of Coal Tiger though. The character would be added to the Marvel Universe in 1992 in Avengers issue 355, when he was introduced as being the T'Challa of Earth 355. The only remaining Avenger alive. He was discovered by the Gatherers and brought to Earth 616. Unfortunately, he died of a chronal imbalance that could only be fixed by killing his Earth 616 counterpart, the Earth 616 T'Challa, but Coal Tiger refused to do that. And at number 8, X-Men Forever Earth 616. The Black Panther of Earth 616 is a tragic one. The character's origins are largely the same as 616 T'Challa, with the timelines differentiating after he left the Avengers to focus on ruling Wakanda. One day, Storm crashes into his quarters after fleeing from the X-Men. Nick Fury warns T'Challa that Storm can't be trusted due to the violent way that she partied with her old team, but he chooses to trust his lifelong friend anyway and accept her in Wakanda. Storm starts aiding the people, not only with the weather, but aiding in social causes and helping the innocent, gaining her popularity amongst Wakandans. T'Challa then marries Storm, but on their wedding night, Killmonger attacks them and depowers Storm with a special necklace. Killmonger then reveals that he's assassinated T'Challa's entire family before killing T'Challa himself. But that's not the end of it. Killmonger is then killed by Storm. She had planned this whole event since her arrival in Wakanda, a way to get rid of T'Challa all while maintaining the adoration of the Wakandan people. Up next, number 7, Black Panther from Earth 9047. Also known as the Black and Blue Panther, this version of T'Challa is actually named Chola. He joins the fight against the X-Persons and the Revengers in the What the issue number 1 in 1988. For context, What the was a self-proclaimed Marvel mag of mirth and mayhem, and featured parodied versions of various fan favorites, including the Pulverizer, the Inedible Bulk, the X-Persons, the Offenders, like offensive, you guys get the joke. The character was barely featured in the issue, but got a roll call and flopped around a lot in his incompetent glory. And at 6, Shuri's Black Panther. While there are a handful of times in alternate universes that Shuri, T'Challa's sister, becomes Black Panther, for the purpose of this list we're gonna look at her in Earth 616. After the Secret Invasion event, Namor tries to recruit T'Challa to join the Cabal, the first version of it that is, a council of supervillains led by Dr. Doom. When T'Challa declines, he's put into a coma. Storm, who was his queen at the time, nominates Shuri to be his successor, and she goes through the trials to become queen. But when she gets to the heart-shaped herb, she's rejected due to her lifelong jealousy of her brother. Then Wakanda is put into mortal danger, so Shuri decides to take on the Black Panther mantle anyway, and defend it, a sacrifice that earns her the mantle officially, with the Panther God granting her the Black Panther's powers. In at number 5, Zombie Black Panther from Earth 2149. Just like most other heroes in the Marvel Universe, T'Challa has a zombie version on Earth 2149, and it's creepy as f***. It starts off with T'Challa being attacked by Giant Man, who grows in size and knocks him unconscious, and is also a zombie. When he awakens, most of his right arm and part of his right leg are missing. Soon after that, he discovers Wasp's animated severed head, who's also a zombie, and makes a deal with her to help him escape. He manages to construct a crutch for himself and makes his way through the ruined city. He eventually gets cybernetic limbs built by Forge. Not much is known of his life prior to the zombie plague though. 40 years later, the character is ruling New Wakanda, which is located where New York City used to be, and there's an uprising against him. An assassin creeps into his royal bedchamber and stabs him, but Wasp, who also now has a cybernetic body, has learned to control her zombie flesh cravings, and catches the assassin and kills him. T'Challa lays there dying, but Wasp decides the only way to save him is to zombify him, so she bites him. Up next at 4, Happy Pants Panther. Also known as the Fruity Pebbles Panther, Happy Pants Panther appears in Black Panther Volume 3 issues 35 and 48. He's supposed to be a future version of T'Challa who is sent back through the magic of King Solomon's frogs. He's also distinctively chippier than the T'Challa we know and love. This is likely due to his incurable brain aneurysm that was inevitably killing him. When you're dying, I guess you gotta look for the positives in life. At one point, Loki takes over his mind and sees his knowledge into the future, but eventually Happy Pants falls victim to his aneurysm, and is put into suspended animation by Nightshade in hopes of finding a way to cure it. But that doesn't last long before Manape decides to crush his body, killing him anyway. In at 3, the Spider Virus Panther from Earth 19919. This humanoid Black Panther spider is from the Spider Island comics, which was part of the Secret Wars event in 2015. This series begins with Peter Parker turning into a giant spider after he gets a kiss from the Spider Queen. When Parker turns back into a human, the Spider Queen uses tissue samples from him to create a spider virus. And guess who gets infected? This 8-legged T'Challa is indicted into the Spider Queen's brain trust, her personal army, and is in incredibly creepy to look at. In our number 2 spot, T'Challa Udaku, the ultimate Black Panther from Earth 1610. While this version of T'Challa has a similar origin story as the regular Earth 616 T'Challa, there are some important differences to consider. So when he's young, rather than just waiting for his elder brother M'Baku to take the trial to become the next Black Panther, he got impatient and did the trial himself to prove his worth. Upon doing this, he's brutally maimed by a Black Panther in combat. After 17 hours of surgery, he's still near death, leaving his father T'Chaka with a tough decision to make. He seeks aid outside of Wakanda to save his son and ends up going to the Weapon X program. You know, the program that turned Wolverine into Wolverine. T'Challa ends up gaining retractable metal claws, similar to Wolverine's, but loses his ability to speak entirely. When S.H.I.E.L.D. takes over Weapon X, Nick Fury takes T'Challa under his wing, and he begins training with Captain America to become an Ultimate. And finally, in our number 1 spot, Venomized Black Panther from Earth TRN 650. So there's 2 different Venomized Black Panthers in the Marvel Universe, but for this number we'll be specifically looking at the Black Panther of Earth TRN 650 from Venomverse War Stories issue number 1, featuring a woman named NGOZI. NGOZI was a track star with a lot of potential, until she was in a tragic bus accident that left her legs paralyzed. One day when she was outside trying to capture a grasshopper for her bug collection, she caught sight of the Venom symbiote fleeing from villain Rhino, who was also being pursued by T'Challa's Black Panther. The symbiote bonded with NGOZI, and T'Challa was killed in battle by Rhino. NGOZI manages to convince the symbiote to fight Rhino, and the two work together to save the people of Lagos, an act that the Dora Milaje take notice of. They decide to take NGOZI in and make her T'Challa's successor as Black Panther, and she has a really rad costume. And at number 10, Black Panther from Earth TRN 654. Continuing where we left off last list, let's take another look at a Venomized hero, this time around the Black Panther of Earth TRN 654, from the 2017 Venomverse story arc. The Venomverse story, which felt eerily similar to what Marvel had done with Spider-Verse, started off with Eddie Brock being dragged into an alternate universe where fellow Venoms are fighting for their survival. It includes the likes of many Marvel Venomized heroes, including Black Panther, whose suit is a slick combination of T'Challa's usual mix with some symbiote sleekness. He's part of Doctor Strange's resistance and was pulled from another universe where he was taking part in a global peace summit. By the end of issue 5, he's returned back to his own universe, as are most of the other members of the Resistance. Up next, number 9, A-Babies vs. X-Babies of Earth 71912. If you're unfamiliar with the A-Babies vs. X-Babies, let's take this moment to read the preface of the comic. I quote, "The book you're about to read doesn't really have anything to do with the AVX event, but it does have baby versions of the Avengers and X-Men fighting each other. So yeah, you're buying a book where babies fight babies. What does that say about you?" Perhaps the cutest alternate version on this list, Baby Black Panther is part of the A-Babies, who are called into action when Cyclops steals Captain America's Bucky Bear, which is a teddy bear named Bucky after Bucky Barnes, which is like kind of super adorable. Black Panther, who is dating Storm at the time, decides to skip out on the battle and go on a date with his lady instead. But that's interrupted when Daredevil, Bucky Bear in hand, busts through them while being chased by Cyclops. And at number 8, Black Panda. Black Panda is part of the Spider-Ham universe, or rather Earth 8311, aka Larval Earth. He first appears in Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham number 15, and is part of the Scavengers team. This was part of a 17-issue run that initially began as a one-shot humor comic book called Marvel Tales, like as in a tale, starring Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham number 1, back in 1983, and featured all anthropomorphic animals replacing the regular human Marvel characters, with of course a focus on Peter Parker, who was now a pig. Rather than a panther, T'Challa was turned into a panda. And at number 7, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Venturing from panels over to consoles, T'Challa's Black Panther makes an appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, voiced by James C. Mathis III. His story is altered slightly. He rules the kingdom of Valkanda and uses the Time Stone of the Infinity Gems to protect it. The reasoning behind this name switch is because the Marvel universe has been combined with the Capcom one, with this being a combination of Wakanda and Val Harbor from Monster Hunter 4. And at number 6, Lego Black Panther. Like every other superhero, Black Panther has been transformed into a Lego version of himself. He appears in multiple Lego games, including Lego Marvel Superheroes 1 and 2, and the Civil War DLC in Lego Marvel's Avengers. He even has a pet cat, named Mr. Tittles, that appears in Superheroes and in the hub areas of Marvel's Avengers. There's also a bunch of side missions with Mr. Tittles too. Gotta love that tittle. And at number 5, Ghost Panther from Earth 161. If you watched the part 1 of our list, you'll remember how we discussed a version of Black Panther from Earth 161 that was tricked by Storm, or rather an evil clone of Storm. The two were married, and on their wedding night, he was murdered by Killmonger, under her orders actually, along with the rest of the royal family. Worth noting that she also killed Killmonger after he was done. The whole thing was a ruse in order to get people of Wakanda to trust her so that she could take over as their queen. The character would later be defeated by the original Storm, who had become known as the Ghost Panther. The original Storm had undergone a transmodification process where her adult memories would be removed and put into storage. Tony Stark would then try to release her back into a physical form, but that caused her body to separate from her memories and energy state. Her memories and energy state would then take the form of Ghost Panther after Stark gave her a suit that looked a lot like the Black Panther's. She would eventually rule over Wakanda in the evil clone's place. In at number 4, Black Panther 2099, Thandaza, from Earth 928. This Black Panther is part of the Marvel 2099 continuity, an imprint that started in 1992 that was initially intended to be one possible future for the Marvel Universe, and provided futuristic takes on various Marvel characters. Thandaza was once a Black Panther himself, and is a descendant of T'Challa's. But back to that in a second. In the future, Wakanda has been severely weakened, and its princess Okusana is about to take the throne. She goes to 2099's Dr. Doom to seek help, requesting that he resurrects her grandfather Thandaza. Doom does it out of respect for T'Challa, and resurrects him, but the current Panther guard Mikalia attacks Thandaza, thinking that his resurrection is some sort of abomination, which interrupts his calibration and leaves him in a constant state of pain and madness. This of course results in a rampage, leading Doom to kill Thandaza and put him out of his misery. In at number 3, Marvel Knights 2099. Speaking of Marvel 2099, one of the offshoots of that was Marvel Knights 2099, a 5th week event that took place on Earth 2992, and wasn't tied to the main Marvel 2099 continuity. It featured a new Black Panther, the son of T'Challa named Kashamba, who rose to fight the mounting invasions of the successor of Doom. Unfortunately, despite being victorious, it was revealed that Kashamba was actually a puppet of Doom's in the long run. He's also ridiculously ripped, so there's that. In at number 2, Exile's Panther of Earth 1119. Known simply as Panther, this character is T'Challa and Storm's son, named T'Chaka after his grandfather. In contrast to his father's personality, he's always cracking jokes, and is quite flirtatious and flippant. He spent a lot of his youth in America, and when his father retired from the role when he was 20, he stepped up, alongside his robotic lion, L10, who's also super dope. He's also a member of the Exiles, being recruited to the team after he was blasted out of his dimension after an encounter with Ulysses Claw. And finally, in at number 1, the MANGAVERSE Black Panther. Ending off this list with one of our coolest alternative versions of Black Panther, and one of the ones that was featured in our last thumbnail, derp, is the MANGAVERSE Black Panther. Appearing in Marvel's MANGAVERSE Volume 2, this T'Challa has a pet panther that he combines with in order to become the Black Panther. Kinda like a werewolf, but a werepanther. But that's not the only transformation he has up his sleeve. He also has the ability to turn into a falcon, or like a crossbreed falcon. If all that seems a little bit odd to you, it turns out that there's actually a somewhat logical reason to his plethora of abilities. The character is largely inspired by the Egyptian god Horus, and is a combination of both Black Panther and Falcon from the mainstream Marvel continuity. If that wasn't enough for you, in addition to that, rather than having Shuri for his sister, this T'Challa has a sister named T'Chana, who just so happens to be Earth 2301's Dr. Doom.
Number 10, Kashamba. Kashamba is the Black Panther belonging to the 2099 universe. He first appeared in Marvel Knights Black Panther 2099 issue number 1. Of course, because this comic is from 2004, Wakanda doesn't really appear as advanced as it might now in the modern day in comics. Our advancements just weren't that great yet. In this comic, Black Panther is overthrown by the Dr. Doom of 2099, who looks a lot like the Dr. Doom of the present day. Fortunately, Kashamba ends up avoiding being killed by Doom and inspires his people to rebel against the usurper. They are successful due to Kashamba's leadership and tactical brilliance, but in the end, Kashamba ends up being controlled by Doom, who seems to use Kashamba's Black Panther mask initially to do so. However, it is more than likely that should this story have continued, that Doom's control would be broken at some point, as Wakanda is both a nation rich with technology and magic. Either way, they'd likely figure out what was happening and find a way to break Doom's control. Number 9, Kevin Cole. Kevin Cole is kind of an anti-hero. He's a cop from Harlem, New York, and first appeared in the 1998 Black Panther series in issue number 50. His character was created by Priest and Dan Fraga. He became the Black Panther without any abilities, wearing a bulletproof Black Panther inspired suit in an effort to stand out and get a promotion. When this attracted the attention of the corrupt Lieutenant Sal Anthony, who attacked Cole and his fellow officers, hospitalizing some of them, Kevin realized he needed to do more and actually became a vigilante in order to take down Sal. Later on, Cole would aim to become a proper Black Panther with all of the mystical abilities. ERIK Killmonger, however, offered him an easier way than through Wakanda, T'Challa, and the Rite of Ascension, giving giving him a synthetic version of the heart-shaped herb, which would grant him powers in exchange for Kevin Cole dropping the Black Panther pipe dream and name, instead joining Killmonger's Panther cult and taking up the name White Tiger. Number 8. Azuri. Azuri was T'Challa's grandfather and the father of T'Chaka. He was the leader of Wakanda during World War II and would eventually end up teaming up with Captain America and his Howling Commandos, as well as Nick Fury to take down the Red Skull and Baron Strucker. He was one of the most deadly Black Panthers we've ever seen, more on guard and less trustworthy of any foreigners that set foot on Wakandan soil during the war. He seems to behave coldly and more ruthlessly when it comes to those he deems enemies. Azuri was more of an independent ruler who believed in not getting involved in the war originally, but eventually came to admire and respect Captain America and the symbol he knew Cap would become for America, seeing similarities between both their positions as national heroes. Number 7. NGOZI. NGOZI is an alternate version of Black Panther from the Venomverse War Stories comic. She was originally a track star whose legs became paralyzed following an accident. She ended up bonding with the Venom symbiote, which gave her the ability to once again walk and use her legs. After the Black Panther was killed by Rhino while attempting to defend her, she convinced the symbiote to join her in taking on the Rhino and defeating him in order to protect not just themselves, but innocent civilians from his wrath as well. The Dora Milaje were inspired by her bravery and named her as the new Black Panther, and this alternate reality T'Challa's successor after her defeat of Rhino and T'Challa's death. Number 6. Black Panther. This is the first Black Panther in known history in the comics. He first appeared in Marvel Legacy issue 1, where it was established that the first Black Panther originated from the Panther tribe. Although we don't know his name, we do know he was one of the first to uncover a vibranium meteor, and the power that came from it. He was one of the members of the Stone Age Avengers, and was powerful enough to help defeat a Celestial. Number 5. T'Chaka. T'Chaka was T'Challa and Shuri's father. As a ruler of Wakanda, he believed in both preserving and upholding the traditions and magic of their people, while also working hard towards pushing forward with technological advancements. He believed that both ideals could coexist and that a nation should progress but not forget their past or their history. As a ruler, T'Chaka was also bestowed with the powers of Black Panther, granted to him by the heart-shaped herb. As such, he had heightened senses and maintained peak physical condition and capabilities throughout his life. Not quite superhuman, but still above average when it came to his strength, speed, agility, and durability. Basically, think of an Olympic level athlete. As leader of Wakanda, he also had the strength of the nation at his back, and as a member of the royal family, he was trained at birth to become a skilled leader when it came to combat and diplomacy. Number 4. ERIK Killmonger. ERIK's story in the comics is a little different from the one that we saw in the MCU. Instead, he is very much a victim who was manipulated and turned into a villain by the traitorous Ndemwe and Ulysses Claw. In fact, it was Claw himself who originally gave him the name ERIK, and encouraged him to discard his true Wakandan name of N'Jindaka, forcing ERIK to treat Claw as his true master. This made ERIK resentful, and eventually N'Jindaka rose up against his captors, killing Ndemwe and abandoning Claw. ERIK would end up adopting the name Claw gave to him to blend in. Eventually ERIK would find his way back to Wakanda and would begin to secretly plot to overthrow King T'Challa, becoming one of his greatest enemies. ERIK himself has become a powerful adversary to Wakanda, and even an emperor in his own right of the intergalactic empire of Wakanda. He not only has had the power of Black Panther, but is also intelligent, boasting a PhD in neuroscience and engineering. Also, every time Killmonger dies in the comics, he always seems to come back. So while he's not immortal in terms of abilities, plot-wise, he kinda is. Number 3. T'Challa. T'Challa is the most well-known iteration of Black Panther in the present day, especially now that we have the MCU version of him. But while some might focus on his fighting prowess, which is impressive, it should also be noted that T'Challa has also been granted supernatural powers since he became King of the Dead. He has necromancy skills and also has developed multiversal senses and awareness thanks to Galactus. Not only is T'Challa powerful in terms of his superpowers, but he is also known for his brilliant mind, which earned him his place in the Illuminati. Many may think of Shuri as the brains of the family thanks to her depiction in the MCU, but T'Challa is actually known for being just as brilliant, if not more, in the comics. He has a photographic memory and is also a master of physics, as well as a field that he created himself and discovered, known as shadow physics. He's super smart. Number 2. Shuri. Shuri has always been passionate about becoming the first female female Black Panther in Wakandan history. She is not only powerful because of how determined she is, but because of how hard she has worked towards that goal. She is determined, bold, brave, and strong-willed. Her half-brother himself trained her for this purpose, in case she was ever called upon to take his place, which of course ended up happening, making her the Queen of Wakanda and Black Panther in T'Challa's stead. At one point they were even both Black Panther. It was her determination and strong will that helped her to become such a spirited and skilled fighter. Shuri is also a genius, a brilliant inventor, and a skilled tactician and diplomat. She has also been gifted with supernatural abilities which allow her to change shape, size, and raise the dead. Number 1. MCU T'Challa. One of the most powerful versions of Black Panthers when we are looking at impact is T'Challa from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This isn't just because of how powerful that character is, how he manages to balance both the traditional and technologically advanced aspects of Wakanda like his father T'Chaka did in the comics, always doing his best as a ruler, a king, and a hero for his nation, but also for the world. It's also because of his growth through the Black Panther film. He is powerful and wise enough to see that one day a change is not only going to come, but needs to come. He is brave and strong enough to see that it is time for him to listen to those around him and share the truth about the power of Wakanda with the world. T'Challa does not let fear blind him in the end. He's not only powerful, but he's inspirational. Add in the fact that we had Chadwick Boseman portraying him in the film, and it only adds to the character's power. He was an amazing performer who always committed to each role that he took on. Chadwick Boseman was the one to develop the dialect of Wakanda, studying various different languages and dialects from across Africa to come up with it. It was also so well received that it became adapted by the rest of the cast when Black Panther came about. This wasn't just a man who played a hero on screen, but he became a hero in his own right, questioning and fighting against stereotypical roles for people of color and using his own voice to raise up and acknowledge everyday heroes. From playing real-world historical heroes to acknowledging James Shaw Jr., who saved lives by wrestling a gunman out of a Waffle House in Nashville, Tennessee during a mass shooting. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. Boseman gave away his award for Best Hero at the 2018 MTV Awards to Shaw, calling him up on stage with him to accept the award, acknowledging him as a real-life hero. If there is such a thing as people who are too good for this world, Chadwick Boseman was likely one of them. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. What has been your favorite version of Black Panther that you've seen so far? Which do you think is the most powerful and why? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, but before I go, I asked some of you fine folk on my Twitter and here on our community page to reach out with how exactly the story and character of Black Panther, as well as that of Chadwick Boseman, have inspired you. And here's what you had to say. Zachary Cardick comments, "Hi Amanda, the Black Panther story inspired me in fighting for what's right. Chadwick Boseman inspired me to make the most of my time while I still live on this planet, even if I know my time here is very limited. Chadwick also inspired me to take nothing for granted." Reina Ramirez writes, "I personally love the fact that whenever he visited ill children, he was T'Challa. He was strong in front of them so that they could be strong. Never did he reveal that he was sick too or made it about him. RIP CB." Simeon Harden shares, "Black Panther inspired me as a young black man a lot. He was a man that knew every language, studied every science, and created his own science. He knew every fighting style and created his own Panther style. He cared about his people, his wife, his son. He was also one of the most intellectual minds in the MCU, and I believe I can do everything he's done. Chadwick was inspiring not only for bringing that character to life for me, even though the movie didn't represent it too well, but also by not playing into these stereotypical characters in movies. They always like to show every character he played had an impact on the world, and he did them all while battling cancer." Wow, such touching stories and thoughts from so many of you. Thank you so much for sharing your feels and your inspirational moments with me and the Top 10 Nerd crew. They have really been sweet to read, and please keep posting them, I'll keep reading them. Rest in power, Chadwick Boseman. Thank you for giving us all these incredible stories. Now, let's make sure that we take stock of our lives every day and make sure we're doing our best to use our own power for good, to rise others up, to take care of one another, and to inspire change. Wakanda forever.